Hi there, students. A grid. Okay, a grid is normally a pattern or a structure made from vertical lines and horizontal lines that they cross each other to form squares. So very often, for example, you'll see a map. On a map, there is a grid. There are lines going up and there are lines going across. And the grid reference will tell each line has a number and you can tell exactly where you are on the map. Or for example, New York City the streets are laid out in a grid system. So First Street, Second Street, Third Street, Fourth Street, Fifth Street, First Avenue, Second Avenue, Third Avenue. It's a grid. It's this square pattern. A grid can also be a physical grid. For example, if you're going to cook on a barbecue, the easiest way is just a grid on some bricks and a fire underneath, and that's your barbecue. And you put the food on the grid, it won't fall through. I'm actually thinking about a cattle grid. In this case, it's just the bars in one direction. So a grid, a framework of crisscrossed lines making squares. A cooking surface of just parallel bars, a gridiron to cook on. So we can also use this phrase to talk about the electricity. I'm sure you've heard this phrase, off-grid, living off the grid. Well, the national grid in the UK is the electric system. So if you're living off the grid, you're not connected to the power stations. The electric grid is a network of all of the power stations that are joined together to give electricity, and there are high tension, high voltage cables going all over the place, and this is the national grid. So if you live off the grid, you're not connected to the electricity, the grid, not a grid. Well, I guess a grid, but the grid is talking about the electricity system. I think also in motor racing, the cars start on a grid or on the grid, and there are squares there which tell exactly where each of the cars should go. And the start off the grid is very important. So it's this array of squares of equal size. A crossword puzzle is a grid. Or a grid for cooking. Yeah, you put it's parallel bits, pieces of metal to put over the fire, and this acts as a grid. In motor racing, the pattern of starting positions for the different cars. This is the starting grid. Or a grid on a map, a grid reference, a grid position. So a grid, a frame of metal, or it could be wooden bars that cross each other. New York has a grid system of streets. So this is the idea of this grid word. The streets were laid out in a grid pattern. An ordnance survey map gives grid references with the position to within 100 meters. The artist drew a set of grid lines over the area to be painted. A metal grid had been placed across the hole to stop people falling in. The grid lines run north-south and east-west. The pilots were just given a grid reference for the target. There was a cattle grid across the road to stop the cows escaping. So there might be an alternative to using the grid, yeah, to be connected to the grid. So grid, I think I'm going to give this a 5 in formality. I think you can use it anywhere. I think it's probably from the word griddle or gridiron originally. Griddle from Middle English. Craticum in Latin, cratis. It's a grid is a mesh, a metal mesh, which is suitable to be exposed to fire. That's the idea of it. So, grid. Bye for now. 5 in formality. Use anywhere.